Hey everyone, Rowan here, and today in celebration of the WRM2020, we're going to be looking back at one of the most influential speed cubing lines, the Weilong GTS line. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Starting things off with the original Weilong GTS, this was like my first speed cube. I originally had a Dianma, but I don't really know if you can consider that a real speed cube. So I'd say that this was my first actual speed cube. And it was an instant improvement, obviously, over the Dianma, and it really cut down on my times. And when this first came out, I thought for sure this would be the best cube. Like, I didn't really know if anyone could beat this in the future. And for a short period of time, I was right. It was basically the undisputed best cube for, I'd say, half a year, I believe, before the Vault came out and before the GAN Air came out. So this cube really kicked off the modern speed cubing era. Before the Weilong GTS, really, there was only one cube people would flock to as their main, and that was the best performing cube at the time. But after the Weilong GTS, they basically set a standard that the cube would have to perform like past a certain level, so basically every cube that came out after that would perform at a certain level, and it started to come down to personal preference rather than actual performance. Other than this, the Weilong GTS had a really nice crunchy and airy light feel. It was really easy to turn, and from my memories, you could really push it to its limits and it wouldn't give up on you. But as you can see here, it's locking up a little. I think my memories were a little too fond. Maybe my turning style just changed, maybe I'm not performing well here, but I like to average around 16 to 14. You can see I'm averaging 19 at best here. Maybe I'm just having a bad day in this footage, but you can see some of my solves aren't even sub 20, which I'm usually pretty displeased with. Whether or not this cube still holds up today, it was undoubtedly one of the best cubes of its time, and it stayed one of the best cubes for a pretty long time. Next up we have the Weilong GTS 2M, and just like its predecessor, it was one of the most popular cubes at its time. I'd say possibly even more popular than the original GTS. This was the first magnetic cube to fall into the hands of many cubers, and it also set that legendary 3.47 record that still stands to this day. I'd also say this cube really started the trend that you'll see with the next cube, and that is really taking everything, all the innovations from the speed cubing environment and putting it into one cube and really perfecting it and putting it at an affordable cost. So what I'm talking about here is this was at the dawn of magnetic cubes, so very few cubes came factory magnetized. In fact, only one like flagship cube, that was the GAN Air which I'll come back to, and then everything else you had to do it yourself, you had to buy it from Cubicle Labs, and it was pretty pricey, and especially with the GAN Air which cost close to $50, which doesn't sound like too much today. In fact, for GAN standards, that sounds pretty cheap, but for perspective, the other flagship cubes at the time were around $20, so this was more than double the price of the average flagship cube, and for good reason, I guess. It was basically the undisputed best cube on the market. You could do magnetization by yourself on other cubes, but like the combined feel of the GAN Air and the magnets that come pre-installed, this was the best cube that money could buy. But unfortunately, this cube was out of reach for many cubers financially, and so Moyu came up with a solution. They brought the market the GTS 2M, which came at a little higher price than the Weilong GTS, which was priced around $17. They added about $10, I think it's around $26, but compared to the that's a pretty good deal. And it costs little performance, if any, so you're paying half the price for basically the same cube or a better cube, depending on your preference. Other than the magnetization, this cube was really nice. It provided a blocky, smooth, and stable feel. This was one of the last cubes that was focused on stability, and it's really nice. The cube I'm using here is the GTS 2M WCA Record Edition. It's just a normal GTS 2M with a different stylus shade, and I really love this cube. I have it set up with weight 5 on the core and pieces, and then some silk and nebula, and it makes the plastic feel really nice and soft. It's also controllable, and it really doesn't feel like it's aged at all. It still feels like a modern day speed cube, and I really love it. In fact, it was my main over the GAN XS for a short period of time, but my mains are all over the place, so I think it was only replaced by the WRM2020 and then the WRM2020, but this cube still holds up today, and you can see my times really aren't suffering. So this cube, it was great when it came out, and it's still great, and it fell into the hands of many cubers who were interested in getting a flagship magnetic cube. Finally, we have the GTS 3M, which has a very similar story to the GTS 2M. At this time, there was one cube, the GAN X, which had all the features, had all the customization, it had all the performance, and that's the cube everyone wanted. But again, it cost around $50, and this price was a little too steep for many cubers. So, of course, Moyu releases their GTS 3M at half the price of GAN's cube, with basically all the features, no magnet customization, but I'll touch on that later. This cube had a genius spring compression system. It was much simpler than GAN. The system they came up with was quick, simple, and it really helped tailor the cube to your needs. This system was undoubtedly faster than the IPG system because you have to take out the IPGs, and it also allowed for more customization, as the screws weren't forced to be at a certain level, so you could change the tensions to whatever you needed, whereas the IPG only had 2 settings for an IPG. And even now, I'd say it's a lot faster and definitely simpler than the GAN XS system. I still think it's the best system to this day. On top of all of this cube provided a really nice crunchy and blocky feel that a lot of cubers really love, and you can really push it to its limits. The cube I'm using here is a Cubicle Pro Shop GTS 3M. I have this set up so it's a little more blocky and a little more stable. It's kind of similar to my GTS 2M, but I actually like the feel of the GTS 2M a little better, but the GTS 3M simply outperforms it. So I get a little bit better times. You can see, obviously, it's not hindering my times at all. I'm getting the best times I could possibly get here. And that was my video on the GTS line. This was one of my favorite lines ever because it really showed Moyu's ability to take all the technology on the speedcubing market, put it into one cube, perfect it, and put it at an affordable cost so all cubers can use it. Thanks for watching, hope you liked it, make sure you subscribe and like.